Right, 9 April 2020, and I'm joined by Mr. Khaliphani Phugeni, the spokesman for Dr. Thokozani Khuphe and the National Executive Committee member of the MDCT. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. How are you? Good afternoon.
Very well. So, Mr. Phugeni, can you please give us an update of what has happened since the Supreme Court judgment, which was passed on the 30th?
Okay. I'll do that shortly, but I think it will be amiss of me if I don't attend to some of these insidious misinformation campaign, largely coming from Professor Khuphe and Tendai Piti. The two gentlemen will have you believe that the judgment means nothing. I don't understand what is their obsession with MDCT. PT has got his PDP, Khuphe has got his MDC Green, as he calls it. So the less they have to do with our party, the better for them. We only speak to them as far as our agreement in the MDC alliance. But further than that, I don't know why they are so obsessed with our party. Professor Khuphe goes as further as saying the judgment is a physical impossibility. I don't know what he's talking about. In the first place, our constitution is clear. Extraordinary Congress is not called by the National Council. It is called by the president. And right now we have an acting president who assumes the power of the president. So Dr. Khuphe is physically possible to call for an extraordinary Congress. And she will do that as the court has ordered her. And as for them claiming that they have the numbers of the so-called National Council, I think they're going to get another shock of their life. As to what will happen if we can't get 2/3 of the National Council as constituted after the 2014 Congress, that's a legal challenge which Prof. Matugu is very competent to deal with, and the Honorable Monzora, I'm not worried at all about that. You will remember now they are claiming that we can't recall MPs. They are going to get another shock of their life. If you recall in 2016, roundabout there, no, this is 2014. 2014, there was a group of MPs going by the name MTC Renewal who were under Tendai Piti. And he claimed that if we're able to recall them, he will change his surname to, did he say Tendai Twangirai or Piti Twangirai of that sort? He didn't change, by the way, but we did recall. So if all you have is you're basing your argument or your faith on these two gentlemen, I'm very sorry for you. These are very desperate politicians. When Khuphe says the words he says by saying Warezano project, is actually projecting, because we know that when he split from the party in 2005, which by the way Dr. Khuphe never did, when he split from the party in 2005, he took a party which had his party in the 2008 elections. They got through Simbamako, they got 8-point-something%. By the time he ran himself as a candidate, he got just 2%. So if going by his own argument, which means he was a ZANU project and he was rejected by the people, so we will have nothing to do with the ZANU project. So I just thought that's very important that I don't ignore those insidious comments by them. I do at least speak to them a bit. But okay. I want to say to you, the acting president is seized with preparation for this extraordinary Congress. Of course, because of the lockdown, her movements are restricted and their ability to meet with others is very much restricted. But I can confirm that she has been able to speak to the SG, the chairperson, every now and then. And the official spokesperson, Honorable Kutu, I'm pretty sure of that. I know that she has also spoken to the organizer, Honorable Pepe. I'm not sure of how many more people. I'll be able to give you more details after today, because I know that there are other meetings that are happening today. when I say meetings, they don't necessarily have to be physical meetings, but there are meetings that are happening.
Okay, so what is the plan going forward?
The plan is to implement the judgment in letter and in spirit. That judgment has to be implemented. In the first place, that's what we've been arguing all along. You see, I want to show you the duplicitousness of our detractors. You would know that there is that Bulawayo court case which Dr. Khuphe won, which then Chamisa and friends appealed at the Supreme Court. By the way, they were appealing, calling themselves MTCT. That was the issue. They did not appeal as Alliance, they appealed as MTCT. And then the Supreme Court said that matter must go back to the High Court. It went back to the High Court to identify who really succeeded Dr. Tsvangirai. Whilst it was there, they pulled it out of the record. Now, this is the duplicitousness of the whole thing. As back as last month, the matter, they had revived that matter in the courts. And 2 weeks ago, our lawyer, Professor Matugu, was in court arguing and saying, but this matter has been established through, or has been settled through Justice Edith to say Dr. Khuphe is the legitimate successor of Dr. Tsvangirai. But they argued that no, because there were different respondents that were cited in the form of Honorable Pepe and Kutu, whereas the one that Justice Mushore made a finding on at different respondents. So they said, no, we want this thing to carry on. So for them today to then turn back and say they are not worried about this, Chamisa has got his own party, which is the Alliance, it's childish to say the least. Because okay, for him, let me make this point. For him, Chamisa, it's very, very important to be the legitimate successor of Dr. Tsvangirai. And I'll tell you why. Because besides the unsuspecting followers, there is a constituency which matters to him, and that's the diplomatic community and the international community. You can't make that a lazy argument as they are making now, really revising history. You can't make it to a serious and a reputable constituency, which I've just spoken to.
Okay, I just want us to go a little bit into the detail.
Okay.
So far, we have gone almost 9 to 10 days after the judgment.
Yeah.
And you've got 90 days to do this, all the processes.
Yeah.
Are you sure that the processes will be able to happen?
Yeah, the processes should happen. I know that if you listen to the nuances of the noises they've been making on social media, is to the effect that they want to turn this judgment to an impossibility. In other words, threatening MPs and threatening other people. But what they do not appreciate is that if people have voluntarily decided to disassociate with the legal structure of the MTCT, it does not stop the processes of the MTCT. So happening, it will happen. The mere fact that others are operating in such a way to frustrate the judgment is regrettable. So that's as far as I can say. But as for implementation of the judgment, it will happen.
Okay, have you approached Nelson Chamisa to talk to him?
I think the judgment was clear. As I speak to you right now, in line with the judgment, Nelson Chamisa holds the same station and position like me. He is an executive member. He is a secretariat for policy. I'm a secretariat for ICT and science development. We were both in the shadow cabinet. So I don't understand why are you singling him out. Maybe you're singling him out because of the position he had put himself before the judgment. But after the judgment, he is a national executive member in standing like myself. He will just have to subject himself to the judgment.
I'm singling him out because he has a lot of followers that are speaking and they are opposing the Supreme Court judgment. So it's important, obviously, you guys won't be able to implement the Supreme Court judgment if all these people are out there saying that you cannot do it.
No, but that is exactly where you are mistaken. I think you need to understand the position that the Supreme Court holds in our democratic dispensation. It is a court of law. It makes binding judgments. To the extent that anyone is out there to frustrate the implementation of the judgment, it does not impede on our ability, those who are devoted to the rule of law, to carry out what the court said. Let me make it clear to you, because I see where you are struggling or where we are missing each other. As a way of example, if there are 10 of us who are affected by this judgment, and out of 10, 8 of them decide to disregard this judgment, which will be 80%, and only 2 of us, which is 20%, are dedicated to fulfilling the letter and the spirit of the judgment, we will carry out what will be a legal implementation of that judgment.
Okay, now let's talk about recalling of MPs, senators, and councillors.
Okay.
Is there anyone who's going to be recalled as we speak right now?
That question doesn't even arise. I'll tell you why. Because we deploy our deployees based on the program of action. To the extent that everyone is carrying out their duties as expected of them, that question doesn't arise. But if people are failing on what is expected of them, because as a political party we have a program of action, and we'll just have to redeploy them and deploy those that can be able to carry out that program of action.
Okay, there are MPs who have come out and spoken out against the Supreme Court judgment.
Yeah.
Are these going to be recalled, and by when?
Well, those MPs that have come out and spoken publicly against the Supreme Court judgment, obviously the party has processes. I'm sure that immediately after the lockdown, as I gave an interview to one of our dailies there, there will be a national council immediately after the lockdown. So the national council will be sealed with such matters.
Okay, and then in terms of the alliance, there is the vice presidents, 3 vice presidents, who are still calling themselves vice presidents, and they insist that they will continue to occupy Harvest House. How are you going to act against these people?
No, that will be unlawful. And by now, you know that whatever we do it according to the law. That alliance is made up of an agreement, memorandum of understanding. So they made that agreement with us as MDCT. They did not make that agreement with an individual. They made it with MDCT. So I'm pretty sure that the Secretary General, the acting president, the chairperson, and the leadership of the party, really, we are equal to the task. We will deal with that matter.
There's also been statements that Dr. Thokozani Khuphe won't be able to enter Harvest House. In fact, she has been challenged to come to Harvest House. Is she going to come to Harvest House?
The headquarters of the MDCT are at Harvest House. So it must follow to any reasonable person that the bona fide acting president of MDCT will operate from Harvest House.
Will she be safe to travel within the structures of the MDC? Are you sure that she will not be harmed given the threats that have been going out?
Well, those threats are more of a reflection of what the alliance has turned out to be. and even the person who is the leader of that grouping. Isn't it ironic that we sit here and they make the arguments that Dr. Khuphe, Honorable Monzora, Honorable Komichi, ZANU creation, and all those things. I don't think you've ever heard them threaten anyone or threaten any acts that can be even misconstrued for undemocratic practices and barbaric. And yet this so-called emancipator of the people against the oppressive regime, the first thing they do, faced with a legal challenge, is to threaten violence and anarchy. Deal with that.